Hourglass Holiday Face Palettes is the most anticipated launch, not only of the holiday season, but of the year, and more so this year, because finally Hourglass have heard us. We're getting 15 new shades. There's only one repeated shade on each of these palettes. The Ambient Light, Edit, and Lock palettes are now available at Hourglass. That's where I bought them from. And exactly as last year, you're able to customize each of your palettes. You're able to choose the compact of your choice with the color story of your choice. The palettes are made in Italy with a shelf life of 12 months. Each palette contains 6 different shades between blushes, finishing powders, bronzers, highlighters in the unique formula from Hourglass. Each palette costs $90. That may seem a little bit steep, but honestly, if you were to buy the mini blushes, bronzers from Hourglass in singles, 6 of them, is going to cost you way more than the $90. That's why these palettes are so popular. And on today's video, I will be giving you my review, my demo filmed in natural light in 4K resolution. So make sure you have your settings on YouTube as 4K, because usually YouTube tries to convert each of the videos to still HD, but not to the resolution that it was filmed. So if you want to see everything on details, this is the time. Just check for the gear on the screen and you should be able to change the resolution right there. And then we're gonna go with side-by-side comparisons, all the jazz. I'm so excited, friends. You don't know, I had been like a hawk watching for FedEx to come with my order, and I have cleaned all my brushes. They are all nice, washed, ready to dip them on these beauties. Let's go ahead and get started first with the Dragon palette, which is meant for those with fair to light complexions. You get one finishing powder in Dreamlight, and this is the one that is a repeated shade. All the rest, all these 5s here, are new shades. It just gets me excited because finally we're getting those new shades that we have asked for so much in the last few years. The second shade is Blush Peach Fusion. Then the third one, it's another finishing powder, and this is the same thing that happened with the Butterfly palette 2 years ago, 2022, that we received 2 finishing powders. To me, a little bit unnecessary, but let's just keep going. Blush Mauve Haze, bronzer soft bronze. It looks more of like a cool tone bronze, and the highlighter in Sunlit Strobe Light. One thing that I noticed about these palettes is that none of them contains the metallic strobe highlighters, which are the most beamy and most potent. All the highlighters are on the strobe light finish. And here you have the swatches of the Dragon palette. You may be able to notice this shade is way lighter than this shade. I haven't set my concealer, so I'm going to go with a finishing powder in Dreamlight, and I'm using a Refer number 19 brush. This is from the Alexandra Anel collaboration, and I'm just going to use this shade to set the concealer. It doesn't have any glitter or shimmer. It does have that blurring soft light effect that we all know from Hourglass. BK Beauty A507 brush, and I'm going to this gorgeous peach shade, and it is marbleized. It does have a little bit of tan marbles in it. I cannot wait to put this peachy tone on my cheek. Very soft. I do have a light to medium skin tone, and that is super important to note. I'm bringing it towards the front so you can see it. Oh, it does have not shimmer, but a very subtle ethereal sheen to it. So if you do not like to use highlighters or luminizers, this is kind of like 2-in-1. Going with this double-ended brush from Hourglass, I'm going into the mauve shade. And I'm gonna take it on this cheek. Can you overlay them? Absolutely yes. I don't see why not. And you can see how much it picked up the brush too. So it's nice and buildable. And this blush has a natural finish. It doesn't have the same sheen as the peach blush. Soft bronze. Oh, it's showing on me. I thought it was not going to show on me, but like I said before, it is of a cooler undertone. but it doesn't look like a contour. It doesn't look matte either. It's just not your typical warm bronzer. Now I'm gonna take this same blush and apply it closer to the temple, just to create that gradient. Although I would have gone the opposite direction. I would have put this one here and the peach one over here. And the Sonia Mini Cheek brush. And let's go for it. Imagine if this was the metallic one. It would be so, so intense. My goodness me. The intensity is beaming. I mean, it shows a lot more because also my skin tone. Wow! Wow. I'm going next with the deepest finishing powder in the palette, Divine Light, and a Chikuhoro PO3 brush. This is how much the brush picked up. And I'm just gonna buff these powders. This shade is just a little bit too light for my skin tone, but it's doing its purpose, which is blend in and give that ethereal finish to the makeup look. And there you have it, friends, the Hourglass Dragon palette. The next one, the Evil Eye Face palette, meant for those with light and medium complexions. The finishing powder in Soft Light is the only shade repeated on this palette. All the other 5 shades are new shades. The highlighter in Rose Gold Strobe Light. The blush in Pink Fusion. Another blush in Oasis Glow. A third blush in Vibrant Coral. Bronzer in Natural Bronze. And just like the Dragon palette, this bronzer looks more cool tone. And here to the swatches of Evil Eye. Sonia G Inoshige Pro brush and the finishing powder, and I'm gonna use it to set this side of my concealer because I had to reapply everything on this side to do this demo. Love these powders because they are non-drying. I do have more of dry skin, and believe me, I don't want anything that makes me look like the Sahara Desert. The Hermes brush and the blush in Pink Fusion, and I'm taking it first on the very front of the cheek. And inspecting it closer, this blush has a marbleized effect of a muted, almost lilac pink and a little bit of peach in it. Going with a highlighter in Rose Gold Strobe Light, also marbleized. Oh, and this is so nice and soft. It must be because this palette is meant for my skin tone, so it doesn't look as beaming as the highlighter from the Dragon palette. Definitely this side is more peachy in tone, and even if I was to apply the mauve tone from the Dragon palette, it was not going to look as rosy as this side of my face. Refer 05 brush and going into the bronzer. Nice and soft. And although leaning in the cooler tone, is not reading muddy. From Sonia G newest brush collection, the TF3 brush. And I'm going with the finishing powder, and I'm just gonna buff all of this. Oh, what a nice and soft blend. Look at that. I reapply foundation and concealer on this side, and now let's go for the blush in Oasis Glow. And I'm taking it right in the front of the face. This is my type of shade. This shade with a smoky eyeshadow look, oh, it will look incredible. It's one of those shades that we all need in our collection. Sonia G TF2 brush and the shade Vibrant Coral. This gets me excited. And I'm just taking it on the upper cheek all the way towards the temple. This blush shade is dead gorgeous. Gorgeous. Look at that. So good. Can go again with a highlighter. Oh, look at that. Just a touch. Just a little touch. So good. And let's finish with the bronzer. This palette is definitely meant for my skin tone. And I can definitely see the difference between the blushes on this Evil Eye palette. Here you got them side by side, Dragon and Evil Eye. And the third one, the Lotus Hourglass palette, the deepest one of all. And definitely meant for those with medium tan and deep complexions. But nonetheless, I'm gonna try it. The only repeated shade on this palette is the finishing powder in Eternal Light. All the other shades are new shades. The highlighter in Gilded Strobe Light. a blush in Desert Flash, finishing powder in Eternal Light. What a stunning highlighter in Radiant Rose Strobe Light, blush in Red O, and the bronzer in Bronze Heat. So the swatches are from this shade down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chikuhoro F04 brush, and I'm going into the blush in Desert Flash. Oh, that's so pretty. Oh my goodness. That shade is so pretty. Oh my gosh. Look at that. It does have very nice pigmentation, and definitely you can build it up even more. I'm just being a little bit light-handed because of my skin tone. But as you can tell, I mean, these shades are deep. Sonia G brush, and let's go for the highlighter. Definitely too deep for my complexion. And that's not a complaint. That is a plus, because that's what we want, for this to be deep for my complexion. But the shade itself is stunning. Refer 05 brush, and I'm gonna go with a finishing powder because on my skin tone this is gonna look more like a bronzer, and in fact a warm bronzer. Not orangey, but just a warmer tone. Wow, this look right here, tan look, love it. Just gonna take it here too, because why not? And here too, and here too. I'm just excited now. Here to the first combination with the Lotus palette. And if we compare it with the Evil Eye palette, oh, so bronze, so good. I need a self-tan right now. And this is definitely, I mean, for my skin tone. I'm dying for this. I'm honest with you, I'm dying for this. There you have them side by side. You know what, I'm going with this shade. And oh my gosh, the highlighter underneath this blush. That gorgeous. If you have a tan, I mean, we're still in summer. Girl, this is stunning. And I'm just thinking about all the traveling during the holiday season. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, we just did the demo with this first row. Let's do the second demo with the second row. I'm going into the blush shade using a BK Beauty brush too. And oh my goodness. A red shade can be a really good shade when it's well done. So let's see. Super pigmented. Super pigmented. Hello. Okay. Gorgeous shade. BK Beauty 108 brush, and let's go for that highlighter. Oh my goodness. Let's go for it. And then again, I mean, like, I can use it underneath the blush if I want something a little bit more subdued. Oh, it's looking really good. Oh my. These two together. That's so pretty. Oh my goodness. So pretty, friends. So pretty. Let me take this shade and apply it here on the bridge of my nose. I know it's just two colors, but you know, whatever. I want to do so. Oh, that's so cute. That to me just completes the whole thing. It just gives a little bit more dimension to the look. Now for the bronzer, again, cooler in tone. It's not your typical warm tone bronzer. And oh my gosh. And it does have a reddish hue. Oh my. Let's see. Ooh, I'm liking this. My cheek looks more chiseled, doesn't it? I mean, like, yes, it does. I'm not hallucinating. Yes, it does. It looks more chiseled. Obviously, it's way deeper for my complexion, but it does look very chiseled. I will need to go, I mean, lighter handed, obviously, because otherwise, I mean, like, I have plenty of pigment here, but let's use it as a contour, you know? Now that I have this palette, yes, I will be using this shade with a smaller brush and to contour. Do you see right here? Look, I just created a shade that is not here. Do you notice that? And it just looks more chiseled. I mean, finding ways to use the palette, right? Now that I have purchased it, And then I'm just gonna apply the rest here on my forehead. All right, this is the same palette, 2 different looks on a light medium complexion with a tiny bit of tan. I still need to tan more. Now let's do something for the eyes. Let's go with this shade first. And I'm just gonna take it above the crease lightly with a Sonia GT5 brush. I'm going to Desert Flash and I'm gonna take it all over the mobile lid. Going with this shade and just taking it on the outer third just a little. Going with the bronzer and taking it on the outer V, just creating that dimension. Going to the highlighter with my finger and I'm just gonna tap it right on the center. So good. With this shade, I'm gonna take it to my lower lash line. And with this shade, I'm gonna apply it on the outer third of my lower lash line. Going with this baby and to the inner corner. Ding. Love it. Rub on with whatever is remaining. And let's tap it here. Just put a little bit on the nose. Bridge of the nose. Voila. I apply mascara and eyeliner, and here are 2 looks and an impromptu eyeshadow look with the Lotus palette from Hourglass. What are your thoughts? What do you think? Which side you like the most? You have to tell me. But before I go into my final thoughts on this Hourglass 2024 holiday collection, let's go into comparisons. First, Dragon palette versus the Elephant palette. And by the way, if you missed on the Elephant palette and you were looking into it, Hourglass has quote-unquote relaunched, re-promoted, but now in the Barney's and Hourglass collaboration. So if you miss on this palette, look at these shades. Oh my gosh, don't miss it. It's so good. But as you can tell, the Dragon palette is way lighter. If anything, it will look more like the Butterfly palette, which is a palette that I ended giving it away because it just wasn't of my taste. Now, this palette I think is better than the Butterfly palette because of the blush shade, the muted mauve tone. This peachy with a little bit of a bronze tone is very pretty. It's a lot more cohesive. And in terms of the Jellyfish eyeshadow palette from last year, I curated it with the Owl palette, so disregard that. This is the lightest Jellyfish palette. Yeah, it does have a little bit of a resemble, but not too much. I think this leans more mauve, and with the peach, more peachy. Even the bronzers, yeah, the bronzers from the Jellyfish palette from last year is way more warmer than this year's. This year is leaning a little bit cooler in tone, and it has a little bit of a reddish hue to it too. Now to the Evil palette and the Leopard palette from last year's collection. What do we have to say about this? We see once again more of those rosy tones, but this palette has more vibrancy to it because of this coral shade right here, and then another blush shade that is a little bit more muted, something that we didn't receive on the Leopard palette. The Leopard palette is gorgeous too. Let's swatch them side by side and see the difference. So let's go first with the blush shades. My blush on this palette, unfortunately, is just way too light. That's what I received, and oh well, that's the thing with the Marbleized shade from Hourglass. Sometimes the shades are not exactly as you wish because, you know, some of them are more marble than the other ones. So here it is the Evil Eye palette. Let's go for this shade. As you can tell, it does have a pinky undertone. You can barely see it there. Then let's go for this shade. They are not equal in the same family, but I feel that this one is way more vibrant. And then this shade over here, yeah, it just have also another finish, and it is a little bit more warmer in tone too. In terms of the bronzer, the highlighter, the bronzer is not as deep as the one from the Evil palette. As you can tell, this bronzer is lighter, a little bit warmer in tone. And then this is the highlighter. The highlighter from the Evil palette has a peachy undertone. The one from last year is more of a champagne kind of highlighter. There you have them. Going into the Lotus palette versus the Tiger palette, I feel the Tiger palette is way more warm, more bronze tone. Let's just compare this shade. I think that's the one that is more alike. And then let's check out this shade too. Yep, that's way more bronzy. Way more bronzy. And then this shade, it has a reddish hue. Different, very different from this palette. And don't get confused, this is the snake palette in case on the jellyfish come back, do not worry. So this is the deepest palette from last year. Again, the snake palette versus the Lotus palette. This is Lotus. So again, you can see the warmth tone on this palette. This year, in general, they lean all a little bit more cooler. Not even cooler, but perhaps more neutral if we are like seeing them side by side. And I don't think there's much of a comparison here either. I'm just gonna swatch it for you to see. No, way lighter than this palette. No. And here you go, the Hourglass Holiday 2024 face palettes. And what I think about them, I think if we talk about in general the formulation, it is what we know and love about Hourglass. The formula is exquisite, very soft, and that is one of the reasons why these palettes are sought after, not only because you get multiple shades for a lower cost than buying them in singles, but more than anything is because of the formulation. The finish is always so ethereal. Perhaps Hourglass was the pioneer to bring this soft focus candlelit effect, ethereal makeup look that looks like you have a filter but without having a filter. That's what it makes of the Hourglass powders so special. But if we dissect each of these palettes, starting first with the Dragon palette, honestly, if I was to customize my palette, it would be this case. I love the Dragon case. I think it's just so beautiful. I love the tones. It looks very elegant. But talking about the palette by itself, I think it's too redundant having two finishing powders, although one is more pale, leaning a little bit, not yellow in tone, but just creamy in tone, ivory in tone. And then the other one has a little bit of a rosy undertone. I do not have fair complexion, so it's not fair for me to really, like hammer down this palette and the reasoning why two finishing powders. I would have rather seen another blush. That's just my take here, but I'm very happy of the different blushes. They don't look like the Butterfly palette, it looked too alike, each blush. This one is a true peachy tone. This is just gorgeous, and this mauve tone, stunning. It reminds me a lot to the Hourglass Edit palette of 4 or 5 years ago. This mauve tone, exquisite. Now the bronzer, really nice. It will chisel out your look without looking matte, and that's across the board on each of the palettes. And for the Evil palette, I love that they have 3 blushes. This is a blush that, believe me, it looks very boring, but it's a blush that is so complimenting. Like, I think I mentioned it before, but if you do a smoky eye look and you use this blush, it looks so gorgeous. This is your pop blush here, the one that is just like boom there. Oh, just stunning. Just stunning. Mostly, I mean, if you want something more vibrant, and this is more of like a lilac undertone blush. Very pretty blushes here. Love also the highlighter because it's duotone, so it does have a little bit of the champagne and a little bit of pink in it. It just have a je ne sais quoi, very special. The bronzer though is very cool tone. I'm very intrigued why the selection of this bronzer is not bad at all, but it's just way cooler than what we have seen before. I know they want to tweak it. Now, in terms of the finishing powder, I personally love the dim light finishing powder more than soft light. I think the dim light is just gives that candlelit effect even better than the soft light. That is my personal preference. And because this palette is supposed to be for light to medium complexions like myself, I will have to tell you that if I had to tweak something, it would be the finishing powder. That would be one of them, and perhaps the bronzer, just to give a little bit more warmth to it, just a tiny bit. Not that it's bad, and yes, I like it, and I think this is fair for my light to medium complexion. Finally, the Lotus palette is, although too deep perhaps for my complexion, I think if you're rocking a tan, this is just gorgeous, and this will take you for that end of summer when you have either a fake tan or a full tan and whatnot, all the way to those autumn kind of tones. That's what it's giving to me. Talking about, again, the perspective of a person with a light to medium complexion. But this is phenomenal for someone with deeper complexions. I would love to know if any of you have a deeper tone and you're excited about this palette, or if you have tried it, if it works for you. Same thing, if you have a fair complexion, it will be good that you leave your comment, because that way we can all have a healthy conversation and get our thoughts out. To me, I mean, like, this is a stunning palette. A completely stunning palette, and I'm just so beyond happy that Hourglass have heard us that we wanted new shades, and this is what is happening. We are getting 15 new shades. It's nothing easy for a brand that has been very like, this is Hourglass period, we're not changing, to make such a big jump between having just 3 new shades here and there to 15 in total new shades. I mean, 5 new shades on each palette. I think that is something to applaud, or just, you know, give kudos to Hourglass, because thank you so much for listening to us, your consumers, your clients, the ones that we want to use more and more your palettes. I think that is just so beyond important. But I'm sure they are not going to want to have any waste, and perhaps in the future, not in the near future, because obviously they want to sell these palettes, but perhaps in a year or two, we're going to be seeing all these shades as singles, and that will only happen after receiving the feedback of the clients. If anything, I keep saying, and I have said it for 3 years in a row, I would love for Hourglass to do not only bring us the beautiful cases, but even if it's a 4-pan palette, for us to be able to do our own mixes of what we want to see on each of our palettes. If we need a finishing powder, if we need 2 blushes, if we need a bronzer, I think by adding all these 15 shades, they have a great opportunity for perhaps next year to be able to see that, to be able to be like, hey, here are the cases, you customize your palette the way that you want it. Oh my gosh, that will be incredible. That will be awesome. I know it will not be the best for those people that are beginners in makeup, because that is also the beauty about these palettes, and that's the beauty of gifting these palettes. If you know someone that is perhaps starting with makeup, tipping their toes on it, these palettes are just so easy for traveling, and they are just so exquisite. They are incredible. So anyhow, my friends, that was my review. Let me know what you think about these color stories, which one is the one that you are the most tempted to get. And if I haven't mentioned it, I do have a discount code with Hourglass. This video is not sponsored by Hourglass. Like I said before, I bought these palettes myself. I'm just excited. I'm very, very excited about these palettes, just like every year, and mostly because there are so many new shades. But anyhow, if you want to take advantage of that discount code, it will be on the description box. Now, let's continue the conversation on the comment section down below while you're at it. And if you haven't done so yet, I invite you, come on, subscribe to my channel. Make sure you ring that post notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. If this video was of any help, well, give it a thumbs up. That's the best compliment that you can give me. Share it with family and friends. And it will be incredible if you can come and follow me on TikTok and Instagram. If you're not done watching my content, well, guess what? I will have a couple other videos at the end of the screen that I'm sure you're gonna love. And if you wanna know what's next, many more reviews like the Gucci highlighters. See you then. Bye-bye.
As who I